This is the continuation of the first lecture on Ode on Solitude by Alexander Pope. In stanza number 5, Alexander Pope says, "Thus let me live unseen, unknown. Thus unlamented, let me die. Steal from the world, and not a stone tell where I lie." The narrator of the poem conspicuously agrees with the fact that he wants to escape from this life unknowingly, unnoticingly. He wishes for escapism and begs for an unseen life, one where he may live in solitude until his dying days, which will come and go. The days will pass. The situation will be the same. But he doesn't want to be in the sameness of life. He wants to escape himself from the hustle and bustle in the society. He may live in solitude until his dying days, which will come and go unnoticed, unremarked, unadored, perfect life of solitude and peace. So that's why these lines are quite important in understanding the notion of solitude by Alexander Pope. I repeat the lines once again. Thus, let me live unseen, unknown. Thus, unlamented, let me die. Steal from the world and not a stone. Tell where I lie. I explained all these lines in the first part of this video. So let's go for the second portion of the poetry. In the second part of this poetry, I am going to specifically focus your attention on the historical context of this poem. So here, the poem Ode on Solitude genuinely expresses a mature concept of solitude. Particularly, it's a bit about wishing to die alone. Many might be surprised to know that Alexander Pope wrote Ode on Solitude in 1700 at the age of just 12. He was just 12 years old when he wrote this poem. Pope had just moved to a small estate by a forest in a small village from the main British towns. This poem talks about the notion of solitude. And I would like to say one thing, that how solitude is different from loneliness. First of all, I would like to clarify the concept of these two things which are being confused to the readers and critics. In Marathi, loneliness means ektepana. In Marathi, loneliness means ektepana, and solitude means ekantavas. Ektepana and ekantavas, loneliness, solitude. These two words stand poles apart. Most of the times, students get confused with these two words and the meaning of these two words. I explain one by one. Loneliness means the state of being far away from other people, places where exactly people dwell or people live. That is called in Marathi ektepana. Loneliness means ektepana. But solitude is different. Solitude means ekantavas. Solitude means the state of being alone. The state of being alone, especially when you find this pleasant. When you find this pleasure. So, this is the difference between loneliness and solitudeness. So, let's have a look at a number of important quotations regarding to the solitude and happiness. We will see it in the course of time. But before that, it's important to talk about a few things here. That is, Pope moved to a small estate by a forest in a small village far away from the main British towns. His family had been forced to live there because of their Catholic faith, and it could be here in the village, now known as a popehood, named after Pope himself, that the young child found his ideals in solitude. Here he talks about the idea of solitude, undoubtedly being inspired by his new natural landscape, particularly the Windsor forest. Pope's education, especially the formal education, ended at this time. Another unfortunate result of being Catholic at the time. Instead of giving up on learning altogether, Pope attempted to educate himself, drawing on classical literature, paying particular attention to poets of the era. This is just the background of Alexander Pope. This is also crucial to interpret the poem. It is altogether unsurprising that one of Pope's earliest works would be a very mature poem about solitude. It makes sense to think that solace in solitude is an everyday occurrence for the young Alexander Pope. This is quite important to know the fact about Alexander Pope. And he was abandoned largely by the world, and he needs solitude, solace in solitude. While talking about this poem and discussing earlier whether an entirely isolated farmer was a man to be looked down upon for his naivety or respected for his independence, the perspective or the perception of Pope is crystal clear, conspicuous. He envies the man, having a deeper understanding of the poem and understanding exactly the historical context. Alexander Pope was essentially forced out of mainstream society because of his religious beliefs, which might lead one to believe that Pope would have viewed total exclusion from that mainstream society as the best thing that could happen to a person. It's a Herculean task for the poet like Alexander Pope to enter the mindset of the 12-year-old poet. He writes beautifully and philosophically. Let me live unseen, unknown. Look at the words, which are quite meaningful, suggestive. He wants to live this life. He does not want to quit the life, but his living needs to be unseen, unnoticed, unknown, secret, mysterious to others. It is almost disappointing to think that this is not at all what happened with him. Alexander Pope, the poet, did not live a life of seclusion, but rather he was a respected poet during his time, during the span of his life, and remains so today. He changed his views on solitude is difficult to say. The meaning of solitude is different in this context. Whether or not he changed his views on solitude is difficult to say, but it's clear, crystal clear, that his ode on solitude is the inception or the beginning of what would eventually become a literary career of classical fame and definite ingenuity for the now well known poet Alexander Pope. Thus, let me live unseen, unknown, thus unlamented, let me die. Steal from the world and not a stone. Tell where I lie. Alexander Pope. This is an ode to solitude. What exactly the ode means? Let's have a look at this. Ode is a lyric poem, typically one in the form of an address to a particular subject. It is written in varied or irregular meter. The poem is classical, especially the ode is a classical poem of a kind originally meant to be sung. So, in this poem, we usually come across the central theme of happiness, what it is exactly. Let's have a few quotations regarding to this and understand exactly what different poets talk about happiness. Dodinsky is a critic who talks about happiness. What exactly he says is that happiness is the key to being happy is knowing you have the power to choose what to accept and what to let go. There are two things which stand poles apart. The first thing is that what to accept. The second thing is that what to go, what to let go. So it is up to the man to decide his own state of mind. And he has such tremendous powers within himself to make a choice for the acceptance or the rejection of the state of the mind. This is what exactly Blondinsky talks about the notion of happiness. In addition to this, there is one more beautiful quotation, that is Leo Tolstoy, who is of the opinion that if you want to be happy, be. He simply uses the word be, B E B. If you want to be happy, you should remain as happy. This is the meaning of be. Be happy. That's the solution of being happiness. There is one more beautiful quotation we come across in this context is about happiness by Goldie Hawn. What exactly he says? Let's go through this. He says, the only thing that will make you happy is being happy with who you are and not what people talk about you, not who people think you are. This is the opinion of Goldie Hawn. Goldie Hawn is of the opinion that everybody wants to be happy. The only thing that will make you happy is being happy with who you are. You can be happy with who you are and not who people think you are. So, this is quite conspicuous to understand about the notion of happiness. This is by Goldie Hawn. There is one more notion or the idea of happiness by Buddha, Lord Buddha, who says there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. There is one more beautiful quotation regarding to this happiness is by Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman is of the opinion that keep your face always towards the sunshine. Look at the beautiful lines composed by Walt Whitman. What he says, keep your face always towards the sunshine, and the shadow will fall behind you. And the shadow will fall behind you. This is the theme of happiness, or the notion of happiness by the poet, the critic, Walt Whitman. There is one in this edition. There is one more thing which is very important to understand, especially the notion of happiness by Confucius. Confucius opines that what you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others. In your life, you want yourself that the people should not behave with you like that. The people should respect you. The people should honor you. The people should not say anything to you. This is what exactly you think from other side. But this is the same way you do not do to others. So this is your own responsibility to behave well with others. Then the people will start behaving well with you. This is the concept of happiness by Confucius. So we have learned almost many quotations about happiness and different views, perceptions about happiness, what exactly and where exactly happiness starts. In this poem, Solitude, we talked about the beautiful lines by Alexander Pope. What he says, thus let me live unseen, unknown, thus unlamented, let me die. Steal from the world and not a stone tell. where I lie. These are the lines, the concluding lines by Alexander Pope. What exactly he says? Here, the poet wants to live happily. He wants to live. He does not want to quit life. This is the most important factor. The second thing Alexander Pope wants to highlight here is that he wants to live the life unseen. The people should not see him. Second thing. The third thing is that the poet, Alexander Pope, wants to be unknown to others. See how beautifully it is composed. In this poem, here, the poet, Alexander Pope, wants to say a few things to all of us, that he wants to live this life happily. He wants others not to see him. The third thing is that he wanted to die unnoticingly. The people should not know anything about his death. He wants to be unknown to others. The people should not divulge the mysterious within him. The people should not understand anything about him. So, here in this context, the poet Alexander Pope wants to die, but after his death, people should not lament over him. He wants to die unlamented, unnoticed, unknown. So, this is quite clear that when a child is born, the people are very happy. And when a man passes away or dies, the people start crying. So, here is a contrast. Why the people are happy when you are born, and why the people feel sad when you leave. Because there is the emotional attachment that you may have with the people, and they feel very sorry, they feel very melancholic once you leave them. So, here in this context, the poet clearly states the fact that, thus let me live unseen, unknown, thus unlamented, let me die. I will die. Once I leave this life, the people should not cry behind me. Steal from the world. I want to escape from this world. I want to go away from this life secretly, mysteriously, unknowingly. So, this is a mystery. So, here the poet wants to escape from this life. He wants to steal himself from this life. And not a stone tell where I lie. So, as you know, the beautiful lines by T.S. Eliot, what he says, in my beginning is my end, in my end is my beginning. Everything begins and ends. In my beginning is my end. In my end is my beginning. In my beginning is my end means everything begins, everything ends. The class begins, the class ends. The life is the beginning and death is the end. But the second line is very crucial, where T.S. Eliot, modern poet, says, in my end is my beginning. When I die, there will be the real commencement of my life. It means my life starts after my death. My life starts after my death. But here, Alexander Pope says nothing like that. His views are totally different. He wants to die unnoticed, unknown, unseen, unlamented. He does not want any name, fame, popularity. He wants to secretly live this life, quit this life, go away from the madding crowd. So, this is exactly what Alexander Pope says. He also states the fact that there should not be any tomb in the graveyard, which says that here is the body of Alexander Pope, dead body of the Alexander Pope. After death, what a man in the life, what a man expects that after death the people should love me, the people should appreciate me, the people should remember me. This is what exactly each and every individual demands in life. The people should know me after my death. But here Alexander Pope does not want any name fame after death. He goes on to say that there should not be any stone which shows to others that I lie here. So this is very interesting and very different concept by the poet. And not a stone tell where I lie. There should not be any symbolic or abstract or concrete exemplification or identity of myself in this world. He wants to live this life secretly. So as I have just explained about the meaning of loneliness and solitude. Loneliness and solitude, these two words stand poles apart. The meaning of loneliness means ektepana in Marathi. The meaning of loneliness means ektepana in Marathi, and solitude means ekantavas. Solitude means ekantavas. Loneliness means to be far away from other people, places where the people exactly live. Whereas the solitude means ekantavas. It means the state of being alone, especially when you find yourself pleasant. So there are other beautiful quotations about solitude, especially the critic Christian Butler, who says, I in solitude I find my all answers. You can find all the answers of your problems whenever you are in solitude, whenever you are alone. So, this is a beautiful quotation by Christian Butler, who says, in solitude, I find my answers. There is one more quote by May Starton, who says, loneliness is the poverty of self, solitude is the richness of self. Look at these two words. Loneliness means ektepana, solitude means ekantavas. He says loneliness is the poverty of self. Loneliness is poverty. Why he says it's poverty? Because you are away from other people, places, and you are cut off totally from the civilized world. Maybe you are leading a life of savagery. That may be loneliness for you. That's why he's of the opinion that loneliness is the poverty of self, whereas solitude is the richness of self. In solitude, you can understand yourself. You will be alone, but you study yourself and you can understand who you are. That may enhance your richness. And this is, in fact, the richness of the self. There is one more beautiful quotation by Voltaire. Voltaire is of the opinion that the happiest of all lives is a busy solitude. Who is the happiest person? One who has a busy solitude, and that busy solitude is the main source of happiness. The happiest of all lives is a busy solitude. If you are busy solitude, then you can call yourself as happy. This is the opinion of Voltaire. There is one more quotation about solitude is by Lawrence Stern, who is of the opinion that in solitude the mind gains strength and learns to lean upon itself. So, whenever a man is having this solitude, the mind gains strength. Solitude means you are alone and you are happy in your mood. And in such state of happiness, you gain strength, you boost your confidence. you get the strength of yourself, and you may learn to lean upon itself. So this is the most important fruitful suggestions that Lawrence Stern has rightly pointed out. There is one more quotation about solitude by Albert Einstein. The name is known to you, Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein is of the opinion that solitude is painful when one is young, but delightful when one is more mature. If you are mature, you can understand the meaning of solitude, and if you are young, you will not understand what exactly solitude means, and it may be harmful and painful to you. So, here, maturity can understand the meaning of solitude rather than being young or being youthful will not understand exactly what solitude means. It may be painful to you. This is the opinion of this is the opinion of Albert Einstein. I repeat, solitude is painful when one is young, but delightful when one is more mature. This maturity conspicuously demonstrates solitude. Well, the last quotation in this concept is by Victor Hugo, who says solitude is good for great minds, but bad for small ones. Again, he repeats the same notion, that is, of the notion of maturity. So, here, solitude is good for great minds, being lonely is good for great minds because in solitude they can think of the universe, think of the world within, and they can prove their greatness through solitude. And it may be bad for small ones. So that minds who are absolutely vulnerable, they will not be able to understand exactly the meaning of solitude. So in this fashion, the poem is over. So I would like to finish this lesson, this poem, Ode on Solitude. So I have explained what is the meaning of ode. Ode means a lyric poem, typically one in the form of an address to a particular subject. It is written varied, invaried, or irregular matter. It's a classical poem of a kind originally meant to be sung. It's a long poem. It's a lyric poem by the poet. So here I conclude my lecture, online lecture, through this quotation by Alexander Pope. Thus, let me live unseen, unknown. Thus, unlamented, let me die, steal from the world, and not a stone. Tell where I lie. By Alexander Pope. Okay, thank you very much. The class is over.